Okay, well, sticking with defence then, the Treasury was tweeting out this message today that national security is the first responsibility of any government, and through boosting our defence sector, we can protect the UK and help grow the economy. Now, Rachel Reeves, of course, today is giving her spring statement, and many cuts expected. But let's have a listen to what Rachel Reeves had to say about defence and war this morning.
I'm going to set out in the spring statement increases in defence spending for next year worth £2.2 billion as we take defence spending as a share of our economy to 2.5%. The world is changing. We can see that before our eyes, but we're not a passive government, we're an active one, stepping up our defence capability to keep our country safe and secure, because a strong economy depends on strong defence. But as we invest in our defence, we can also bring more good quality jobs, paying decent wages to communities across our country.
Now, so as Rachel Reeves is busy cutting the heart out of government budgets, and I'm not suggesting that that isn't a good thing in and of itself, but the question is, we can be pretty well assured that the money saved is going straight into bullets and bombs. So maybe that's not such a great thing. In the meantime, King Charles was welcoming British and French war chiefs to Windsor Castle on Monday. And this was all about continuing efforts to build the coalition of the willing. Here's another delightful image with Radican meeting his French counterpart. So they were discussing UK and French efforts to build a European Defence Union, as we've been talking about over the last number of weeks and, in fact, over the last number of years, as well as the growing defence partnership between Britain and France. They're desperate to keep momentum in this EU Defence Union process at the moment, and I just sort of get the feeling that momentum's come out of it a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but nonetheless, if you remember last week, following the so-called high-level meetings in London and Paris, there was an operational planning meeting held at the UK's permanent joint headquarters at Northwood. Now, there's going to be more of these joint planning meetings at Northwood this week, where intensive discussions will continue over several days. And just as an aside here, the Skanska contract of £196 million, you can see on this graphic here, it was initially £196 million. That contract's now been extended to 2031, so I'm not quite sure what the total value of that contract is. Skanska, Swedish company, provides, although it's the UK arm of the Swedish company, provides all the non-military facilities management at Northwood. Which we would remind you contains UK military headquarters, NATO maritime headquarters, and until 2019, EU operations headquarters for EU NAVFOR and other EU projects that we were involved with. Maybe because that was maybe until 2019, because we all know Brexit's not really real in any practical sense. And I don't know whether you've got any thoughts on whether they've actually pulled the infrastructure out of Northwood, or whether we still have hotlines and encryption to Brussels.
I think it would be hard to see that it would be destroyed altogether. That would seem reckless. I think, even if it would be the appropriate thing to do. And actually, that yesterday, Mike Martin, MP, who is ex-army, was asking Luke Pollard, Armed Forces Minister, in a defence committee about, not specifically about this, but concerning government policy around operational security, specifically with regard to the leak in the United States. And it was just interesting to note that Pollard was very vague on exactly what government would do. Mike Martin was talking about a staff sergeant of his in Afghanistan who was sacked for incorrectly changing something from being top secret to secret. And he was just making the analogy. And just with this in mind and this capability, it was just interesting to note that Pollard was very evasive on the issue of what exactly would the government policy be. And he was effectively suggesting that, well, it would just be taken on its own merits, depending on who it was and what sort of information. So when you consider that in light of this, I would say, yeah, very opaque.
Yes, indeed. So look, these meetings will also provide an opportunity, the government says, ahead of the UK-France summit later in 2025 for further discussion. And this summit is going to enhance the 2010 Lancaster House Treaties on Security and Defence, which the Ministry of Defence says already provide the UK and France with, quote, a firm foundation of in-depth military cooperation unmatched between European partners. It's unclear how the Lancaster House Treaties could be enhanced because the then Prime Minister David Cameron and French President Nicolas Sarkozy signed two so-called defence treaties at 10 Downing Street following the summit held at Lancaster House. No debate was held in Parliament, and these treaties took us into a 50-year defence pact with France. Now, why is this important? Well, one reason is that the Franco-British axis has been driving this EU defence union policy since 1984, and we can imagine an EU nuclear button, can we imagine an EU nuclear button in the hands of Ursula von der Leyen? We can probably appreciate the problem that might cause. Now, the Wall Street Journal, and thanks to Vanessa for popping this through to me, published this article yesterday. Trump prompts European calls for a homegrown nuclear umbrella, and they're pointing out that Macron has, already held a nuclear drill under the streets of Paris in 2022, which is supposed to send a message to Moscow. They're highlighting the Trump's alleged cooling on NATO as the excuse for driving this. A European deterrent, nuclear deterrent they're talking about, led by France and the UK, could be problematic because of legal, political and technical difficulties. That Germany, Poland and Denmark are already showing interest, but that sharing nuclear weapons means sharing sovereignty. Well, that's the sovereignty issue is something that we've highlighted with European Defence Union for a long time. And that they're pointing out again that Britain's nuclear arsenal failed tests, the dependence on the United States for maintenance and even for the missiles in the first place, and so on. So, the huge cost of this to provide this so-called nuclear blanket over Europe is nuts. And the final point was compliance with the non-proliferation treaty. Well, at the moment, they're already setting us up for that because they're accusing Russia of being in breach of the non-proliferation treaty already. So maybe they don't need to worry about that bit. We'll keep you posted on this, but it is a developing story. We'll see whether the momentum has actually come out of it or whether they can keep it going for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, just quickly on Russia, I think it does telegraph a couple of things. First of all, that there is a high state of unreadiness for war. Yes. And secondly, if there really is a threat, then what on earth is Putin waiting for? I mean, if he really is to invade the entirety of Western Europe, then surely he would have done it by now, before there has been a chance to put all this in place.
Well, indeed, good point. Okay, let's move on. If you like what the UK Column does, you'd like to support us, please go to support.ukcolumn.org. There are options there. You could make a donation. You can join as a member. If you do join as a member, you can get access to UK Column News Extra. Pick up something from the shop, helps us as well, or from clive2carl.com. We get a small commission if you buy something from him through the link on that page. But if you can't do any of that, please do at least share the material you find on the UK Column website. Share buttons are there. We do need your help to deal with the censorship situation, and so any sharing does absolutely help us greatly. Tickets almost gone now for UK Column on Location, which is on Saturday the 5th of April in Cheltenham. Catherine Gunn, Alex Thompson, Patrick Henningsen, Raja Mia and Brian Garish all speaking at that. UK Column Q&A will be part of that, I'm quite sure, as well. If you want to get a ticket, you need to get it very, very soon. But if you can't join us in person, you can at least join us on the live stream. So the live stream is available now on the UK Column shop if you'd like to go and pick up a ticket for that.
And I think just to make it clear, with a live stream ticket, even if you can't watch it as it's going out, you will have access to it afterwards. So even if you can't sit down and watch it on the 5th of April, do please consider getting a ticket because you will have access to it thereafter.
Absolutely. Yesterday's interview with on moral courage and what is required, stopping sexual indoctrination in school with Hugh McCarthy is available on the UK Column website. And tomorrow at 1 p.m, Ben is speaking to Raja Mia and he is, of course, against near overwhelming opposition from Oldham Council, is galvanising local support and local community to disrupt the local party machinery. And Raja will be speaking at the conference as well. So he'll be talking about how they are unseating Labour councillors in particular in that part of the world. So join Ben and Raja at 1 p.m. tomorrow if you can. Now, let's move on then.